All right, it's time for part 2 of our lesson 87, the I sound. All right, so we're going to review that. I. So the sound we are working with today, continuing to work with, is I. Okay. We already know that I and any consonant E will have the sound I in it, as in the word kite. Because there is one letter separating the I and the E, the E's job is to make the I say its long sound, which is I, its name. We know that I will say I, its name, when it is in an open syllable. An example of that is tiger. So the g, goes with the and then that leaves the I not closed off by a consonant, and it says I, as in tiger. Okay? All right, we know that Y at the end of a one-syllable word will say I, as in the word fly. We have also some vowel teams that will say I. It's when two or more letters work together to make one sound. IE is an example of a vowel team that says I. IE can be at the end of a word, as in pie and tie. IGH is another example of I. So if you see IGH in a word, you're going to pronounce it I. IGH can be in the middle of the word, like the word light or the word might. IGH can be at the end of the word, like the word high and sigh. I. So when you hear I in a word, you could spell it many different ways. You could spell it I consonant E, I at the end of a syllable, so an open syllable, or the end of a word, which would still be an open syllable. Y at the end of a one-syllable word, IE and IGH. All can be used to spell the sound I. When you hear I in a word, it could be spelled any of these ways. So much easier when you're reading it, because if you see this, you're going to say I. If you see I at the end of an open syllable, it'll say I. Y at the end of a one-syllable word will say I. IE and IGH. You would read them all I. Spelling it is a lot more difficult because we don't always have rules about which one to choose. So that takes practice and time. All right, let's read some examples together. Tie, lie, might, night. So once again, these are easier because you're just decoding it, you're reading it. But when you're spelling it, that's when it becomes more difficult. All right, so let's do some word work. Okay, so you are welcome to pull up this intermediate word work map on UFly, and it's under the toolbox or the apps under UFly. It's the University of Florida Literacy Institute. Everything on their website is free. So you're welcome to build these words right here. You're welcome to write them on a whiteboard. You're welcome to build them with magnetic letters. You're welcome to just write them with a piece of paper and a pencil. All right, the first word we want to spell is the word pie. Pie. So the first sound we hear is P. I. I. I, E. Okay. Now we want to change pie into tie. You're only going to change one letter on these word chains. That's just how you're practicing this word work. So you just manipulate one letter. So of course that letter would be the P, the P. So I'm going to put back the P, and to spell tie, we need a T. Now we want to change tie to die, and we are going to put away the T and bring up a D. Make sure you have a D and not a B. Die. We're going to change die to lie. Okay. Now, we're going to change it to lie. I'm sorry. I'm trying to look this up. They want us to change lie, like don't tell a lie, into the vowel team IGH. Okay, lie. So I just was looking this up. It's Old English. Past participle of light, lie. Really just not finding a good definition of it. But when words sound the same but they have different meanings, many times they'll have different spellings. Not always, but in this case, it would. For example, like the word bat could mean like a baseball bat, or it could mean the animal bat. And both of those are spelled the same. So you would need context to know which one is which. But many times, the word sounds exactly the same and is spelled different. But I'm sorry, I just don't have a good explanation of this particular word to you. But we're going to change this lie into light, okay? And the only thing we're going to add is the T at the end, light. Now we're going to change this light to might. And all we're going to change is that O sound. Okay. And then we're going to change might to sight. Okay. So we're going to take away the and put in a s, sight. And now we're going to change sight to slight. How would you change sight to slight? And we need to just add something. We're not taking anything away. We're just adding the O, slight. Now we want to make slight into flight. So we change the very beginning letter. And now we want to make it into fright. Fright. So we're going to change that O to an fright. Now we're going to change it to bright. So we're going to change the F, the F to a B. Make sure we have a B and not a D or even a PQ down here. Bright. Now we're going to change bright to right. We're not adding anything. We are going to take away something. Okay. And now we have the word right. as in right and left. Okay? And then we're going to change right to night. Okay? I will say that if you write them by hand, your brain tends to pick that up. It's called, there was some research behind it. There was a book called The Writing Road to Reading. And the more you actually put pen to paper and practice this writing, the better off it is. But sometimes we need to change things, and so we'll use different modes of writing. But the more you put paper to pen, it's going to help with your memory of how to spell words. All right, so moving on, we're going to practice some irregular words. So said, what makes it irregular is that AI should say I and it says eh. Above, so we have the and the and the E is there because English words do not end in V. Above. Among, this does exactly what you would think it would do, but g. So they're making that schwa sound, that sound, both times. Again. Okay. These are the parts that are tricky, that sometimes you just have to learn how they're spelled, and then you just memorize it. But the more we can learn that isn't memorization, then the less we have to memorize. Against, just like among. Okay, against. Or again, was it again? Again, and then against. Okay. So really the tricky parts stayed the same. Nothing tricky over here. Always. I'm not exactly sure why they put this in the tricky part, because anytime A and L or ALL are in words, it's all. Okay, you're pronouncing it all. And so even though this is all instead of a or or eh, we're going to learn that happens a lot in words, that A and L are together and they say all. Whether there's two L's or one L, they say all. Okay, so maybe it's just because we haven't learned that yet, but really it's not tricky because this happens a lot. Things that need to be memorized are things that are really anomalies. They just happen every once in a while. Okay, like that said, that AI saying eh, that happens in that word. Okay, so that's what makes that part tricky. This AL, that happens a lot. All. Like here, almost. Okay, and I think we've already had the lesson over the long vowel sounds that are just in there. But remember, with vowels, you're always going to try what it should be, like ah, and then o, and then So you're going to try all of those until you're like, oh, that must be that word. Okay. All right. Sorry, a lot of explanation there that probably you didn't need. All right, let's read. Do you always fight for the last slice of pie? Do you always fight for the last slice of pie? We are almost done fixing the bright lights. Okay, you can always pause it to make sure you have plenty of time to decode. She tried to help because it was the right thing to do. She tried to help because it was the right thing to do. Right, now we're going to write some sentences. The first one we're going to write is, they were up almost all night. They were up almost all night. They were up almost all night. All right. The next sentence you're going to write is, he always tries with all his might. Again, you can pause the video to give yourself some more time. He always tries with all his might. He always tries with all his might. And they put an exclamation mark. Really just depends on how you read it. If it has an exclamation mark, you need to read it with some emotion. He always tries with all his might. And you can stress whichever words need to be stressed for it. He always tries with all his might. He always tries with all his might. Okay. All right. And it can add different meanings when you stress different words. The last one we're going to write is, it is dark because the light is off. It is dark because the light is off. It is dark. R is dark because the light, L-I-G-H-T, is off. All right, great writing with that. If anything gave you trouble, like the EY, saying A, the IE in tries, or the IGH, or the AR in dark, then you'll want to revisit those lessons. And of course, this lesson is the IE and the IGH lesson. But if any of those gave you trouble, that's what you would focus on. That's what you would practice. Okay. All right, so we're ready to read our connected text now. You can pause the video. There are 3 slides to read, and then we'll read it together. All right, let's read these together. This is entitled The Right Job. Kurt is a pilot. This means he must fly planes for work. He sports a white shirt and a necktie when he is on the plane. He has been flying for a long time. Sometimes Kurt must fly at night when there is no light in the sky. At night, everyone on the plane is asleep and is silent. This is peaceful, but sometimes it gets boring. Kurt prefers to fly in the daylight. This is when he can see the land below and talk to people. Kurt also likes seeing the sights in the places he goes. He delights in exploring the parks, theaters, and stores, wherever his flights take him. But what he likes best is being high up in the sky. Being a pilot is the right job for Kurt. All right. Once again, I noticed that this particular passage had a lot of ORs in it and some IRs and the AR that we talked about earlier, the UR here. If any of those gave you trouble, weren't sure how to decode those, then go back to that lesson about AR or ER or IR, UR, OR. That's just a hint that if certain things gave you trouble when you were decoding it, then that's what you go back to. That's how you're checking yourself, because these decodable passages, this connected text, is very it is written just to practice the things that you are learning now and the things that you've learned. So if any of them that we've learned gave you trouble, you would go back to that lesson and revisit it. All right, great job on the sound I that is spelled IE and IGH.